The 2024 AFL season is done, and I thought I would go through and judge all the quote-unquote best players and have them in a tier list like so, with the best, the very top of echelon being shares genes with God, going down to bordering on elite, very scrumdiddly-dumptious, very good. Good, but is he actually good? You know, that kind of category. And then a down season. Look, I could have put that one as a lot more harsh, but you know, I didn't want to be too mean to the players. So we're going to get right into this, starting off with my club, Liam Baker and Dan Riola. And there's a lot of fucking players to get through here. Liam Baker, this is going to surprise a lot of you. I think he's one of those players, is he good? Like, he's good, but is he good? You know? Like, will he work in the West Coast systems? I think a big one. He's so familiar with the Richmond system, the Richmond guys. It's going to be a different test up in West Coast or Perth. At the time of recording, it hasn't come out where he's going. Okay, I'm doing this quite early on. So still yet to know what he's going to do. But I think he's a great player with lots of potential, but unfortunately doesn't quite make it any higher in the list for me. Dan Riola, on the other hand, I think has to go in. The bias wants to put him in, bordering on elite, but I'm going to put him in a very scrumptious. He's had a great season, a phenomenal season. Should be All-Australian, but unfortunately doesn't make it. And I think after 1 year under Dimmer at Gold Coast, he could go into bordering on elite. That's how good he is, but we're going to stick him in very scrumptious for now. Nick Larkey, I mean, based off his standards, he did have a relatively down season. A lot of people, including myself, had him high up in the Coleman. Some people even having him winning the Coleman. Didn't get close, unfortunately. Yes, injuries in the form of North Melbourne, predominantly that, holding him down this season, but you would say it wasn't the best. Isaac Rankin, I mean, when he's fit, he's in this top category, but just given the injuries, you kind of do have to put him a little bit lower. Could have made All-Australian. He's bordering on elite. Even though he does have the injury problems, I still think we got to give him credit where credit is due and put him in that bordering on elite category. If he keeps his body right, I think he's guaranteed All-Australian pretty much every year. But that's the challenge he has. Moving on to his South Australian, not mate, but rivalry teammate, whatever. Connor Rozee, we have got here, who, myself included, have put him in the past quite high up. But I think this season he has been good, but is he actually good? Now, hear me out. Connor Rozee is a much better player than Liam Baker, we all know that. But I think with Connor Rozee, some people, including myself, had previously held him on a pedestal similar to Zach Butters. But I think now that Horn Francis and Butters have really had a few years under the belt, especially Butters, I don't think Connor Rozee gets close to them. I think in the finals he didn't stand up. Yes, he stood up for the Hawthorn game, but I think there's question marks about Rozee, injury problems as well. Is he the player we all thought he would become, or is that Butters? Look, he's bordering on very scrumptious. He probably should be in there, but I think he suits, maybe not good, but is he actually good, but great, but is he actually great? You get what I'm saying. We might have to redo that later on. Andy Brayshaw, I think, has had an amazing year. I don't think he's quite on elite. I don't think he's bordering on elite yet, but he's certainly had a phenomenal season for the Fremantle Football Club. Brent Daniels has had an absolutely phenomenal season for the Giants. I think it could be bordering on elite, but just because I haven't put Brayshaw in there, and some of the names in here are great, I'm going to put him just in that middle category for now. But in his position, one of the best this season. LDU, I think, has been very scrumptious. Has been better than Rozee. For me, maybe slightly. Thinking a really bad team, North Melbourne. He's shone like a bright light, as have some of his mates. In fact, why don't we just stick to a maybe different level? Let's go team for team. Tristan Xerri and Harry Sheezel as well. We've got some more players down below, but we'll get to them later. Now, Tristan Xerri, I think, is bordering on elite. I think one more season in the form that he's had as the ruckman, the best ruck all year, I think he shares genes with God. But let's give him one more season. If he can do it 2 seasons in a row, I'll happily put him in there next year. Harry Sheezel, I think is bordering on elite. I mean, people talk about Dacos a lot. I think this guy is not as good, obviously, but he should be in those sort of bordering on top 10 in his position in the midfield. Very good player, and in all those three in a really poor North Melbourne side really stood up this year. Tim English, you know what? For a ruckman, I think there are a lot of better ruckmen this season. I think Rowan Marshall, Tristan Xerri were better. I think the likes of Lloyd Meek, maybe even Max Gawn was probably, he made All-Australian, but he was better when he was fit. I like Toby Nankervis more. He's someone that we all know he could be the best ruck in the comp, but he's never really got to those heights. He has glimpses of that, but unfortunately, he's not quite at that level. And that's why I've kind of put him in this good, but is he good? Now, it must be said, Pretty much all these players have had an amazing season. The only season where it's been bad on their standards are in this down season. So just because they're in 4th class doesn't mean they're shit. Just means comparatively with the rest, they're not as good. Or maybe hasn't had as good of a season. Lionel Messi next. We are going to put him in bordering elite. I think this guy is the real deal. And why don't we just bang out Geelong here? Max Holmes bordering on elite. I mean, Jeremy Cameron this season, it's the season, okay? As a player, obviously, he's had an outstanding season. Sorry, as a player, Cameron's the best of the best, but as a season, it's bordering on elite. I know that's kind of misleading, that category. In fact, we're going to have way too many in this category by the look of things. But those 3 for me, I'm pretty comfortable with that. Tom Stewart, I think he hasn't had quite an amazing season. The body's let him down a little bit here and there. But actually, you know what? I'm going to put Cameron in that category purely because I think he is so much more dynamic than other forwards. He's not just your Hogans, your Kernos. He moves through the entirety of the pitch, and for that, I'm going to put him in there. Max Holmes and Graham Myers next season will go into this category. I think just because they don't quite get the numbers of the other players, I think Max Holmes, I'm more convinced. In fact, I'm going to put Max Holmes right up there. Max Holmes is so insane. The finals, that guy, the meters gained, the influence in those finals was insane this season, so he's got to be up there. Sam Taylor, body let him down this season. When he's fit, he shares genes with God. So we'll put him in the middle there. Should have made All-Australian, maybe not with the injury, but just because of the injuries, you can't put him that high. Nick Blakey, bordering on elite. Unfortunately, I just don't feel comfortable putting him in any higher. Sam Walsh is a really interesting one. I'm going to be harsh on midfielders because there's so many midfielders here. You've got to separate them pretty evenly. And I think Sam Walsh has only had a very scrumptious season, to be honest with you. Zach Butters, sorry. He is, we'll talk about the top dogs soon, but he's pretty high up there in terms of the player of the season. We're going to go through nice and quickly here. Ben King, this is going to shock some of you, but I'm going to put him down here in good, but is he actually good? And that's sort of on the basis of you've got quite a few better forwards for me. Waterman's been better. Hogan's been better. Kerno, if he was fit, could have won the Coleman, probably would have. And then obviously Cameron. So out of those forwards, someone's got to go down in there. And for me, it's Ben King. And I hope that makes sense to you. If you had to order one per category, Ben King would be there. This guy, Jordan Clark, had a really good season, but not in the top 2 categories for me. Dylan Moore, top 2 categories easily. Noah Anderson and Matt Rowell. Now, we'll put these, in fact, we'll put all the Gold Coast players here while we talk about them, all these midfielders. First of all, Sam Collins, I think, has had an outstanding season. He gets in that category there. You've got 4 Gold Coast midfielders, and I'm going to set the challenge of not putting 2 in the same category. Or maximum 2, sorry. So, because what I want to do is put them all in bordering on elite. For me, Matt Rowell has more outstanding games, but Noah Anderson's more consistent. Tuke Miller, once again, his body's kind of been letting him down, and I think he's kind of been overtaken as the main midfielder. And then Sam Flanders is that sort of lesser-known guy who really came through and hit the ground running, and his disposal count was insanely high, and he influenced the scoreboard later on in the season. And I think that was people were ridiculing him for that, and he sort of made that happen. Now, just because it's been one season for Sam Flanders, we're going to put him in this category. But you know what? He could easily go in this category here. Tuke Miller as well, we're going to put down in there. Matt Rowell is bordering on elite, as is Noah Anderson. And we might have to revitalise that as well. You know, we'll stick with the whole club thing. We're going to go with Sarong and Young here. Young's had a great season, but yeah, we'll put him in there. And then Sarong's obviously been amazing as well. We have to put him up there. Tom Green, we'll do the Giants now. Lockie Whitfield, Tom Green, Toby Green. I've already put Tom Green up there, etc, etc, etc. Lockie Whitfield, I think in his position, could go here. And I think I'm only going to put shares genes with God for the best players in their position this season. Has Lockie Whitfield been the best in his position? Not quite, but he's been super high up. So we're going to put him really high up there. In terms of Toby Green, I think it's been a down season for him based off his standards. So I'm pretty comfortable putting him in a down season here. Hogan won the Coleman, have to put him in there. I know I just said only one sort of player per category or one position per category, but I can't really separate these two. Maybe if you have to choose one, obviously you go Coleman, but I think Cameron. Anyway, and then lastly, Josh Kelly. He's been really consistent, but some of the midfielders in this list, I feel like are better than him. So we're going to put him down in this category. Good, but is he actually good? Essendon really don't have much in here. Not many players in here to be honest. In fact, they are the only two. So it's not the list I made, okay? This is just a random one on a tier list generator. Nick Martin has had a very impressive season on the wing, but There have been a lot of better wingers. I think he's had a very scrumptious season. Zach Merritt, for me, I think he's up there. Even though he didn't make All-Australian, you know how much I love Zach Merritt. I glaze him a bit too much. Doing tricks on it at this point. He's got to go up there in the bordering on elite. Now, he is elite. Zach Merritt is elite. But this season, there were just a few better midfielders. Chad Warner as well. I think he's alongside the category up there. He was a bit inconsistent. When he's on, he's arguably the best in the comp. But the inconsistency brings him down a little bit for me. Errol Goulding, in his position, has been the best as a winger. Therefore, he deserves top category. And in terms of wingers, I've not seen influence like him in recent years. He's insanely good. Wangani Malera. Oh, wow. We have a lot of St Kilda players here. Oh, Jesus. Oh, my God. Okay, well, to get things started, Wangani Malera, he's a really good player. But in this whole category, we're going to put him in good, but is he actually good? I got to put Connor Rosie up a bit higher as well. Jack Steele. Jack Steele's really hard because if you're talking about comparatively to the seasons he's had 3-4 years ago when he wasn't injured, it's not been a great season, but he's getting it's probably good, but is he good? Okay? It just has to be. This guy, I think, has been insanely strong, and I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves, neither does Dougal Howard. This geezer should have made All-Australian. How Marshall didn't, I do not know. Who's been a better ruck out of Marshall? In fact, why don't we do all the rucks right now? We'll put them all in this top category here. Grundy. We'll quickly do, I know, I'm doing all over the place. Jack Sinclair as well. I think Jack Sinclair probably belongs in the, still think he's had a really good season, but probably been better in his position. So we'll put him down here. Ruckman, now we've already got Tim English down there. Any other rucks down here? Just trying to have a look. I am really blind, as you can see with the glasses, so the chances are I am going to miss a ruckman, but I don't think I have. So let's disperse out these 4 ruckmen. For me, Grundy hasn't quite been up to the standards of other rucks. He's obviously been great, but not quite as good as others. The best ruck out of these have probably been Tristan Xerri, actually, or Ron Marshall. I think Gawn's, we'll put Gawn in there, and I'm actually going to put the 2 ruckmen equally in. Oh, you know what? Just because Tristan Xerri, I think, did it in a worse side, maybe I'll just put him. But Ron Marshall gets pretty damn close. Hawthorn now, we'll put all the Hawthorn players in this low category. James Sicily has had an outstanding season, bordering on elite. Jai Newcomb's been really good as well, but the question is, in fact, I'm not liking the amount of Gold Coast players I have in this list, in this category. I need to put some more down. I'm going to put, I'm going to be pretty harsh here. I feel like you can't put one, just because Matt Rao, no, he'd be a bit potent. Noah Anderson's just going to go on very scrumptious here, because I think Matt Rao's had a bit more of a breakout year. Not that it's a breakout year, but a bit more than Noah Anderson. Collingwood now, Nick Dacos, and that is the only Collingwood player. Whoa, is that the only one in this list? Jesus fucking Christ. That's insane. There's so many plays that aren't being listed here, but whatever. Dacos, he's top dog there. Brisbane now, Zorko, best in his position. He has been outstanding this season. We've also got the likes of Lachie Neale, Dunkley, Harris Andrews, and they are all the Brisbane players, I believe. Now, where do these players go? Harris Andrews has been quite one of the best key defenders this season. They've made a grand final. I am recording this just before the grand final is played literally tomorrow, so I don't know who wins that, by the way. Lachie Neale, really good year, but for me, there have been, even though it's high in the Brownlow, I don't give a fuck. Fuck the Brownlow. I think there have been better seasons. And Dunkley, I'm still a bit confused about him. He's obviously an elite midfielder, but in the terms of this category, I'm going to put him in good, but is he actually good? Stephen May has had a pretty poor season, injuries, form as well. And Petrarca, I mean, you kind of just had to put him in down season purely because of the injury, which is really harsh, but unfortunately I have to do that. Now we'll go with the Dogs, Libba, Bont, and Treloar. Bont, for me, has been as good as Cripps, Dacos, etc, etc. In fact, whilst we're talking about Patrick Cripps, I think Cripps and Dacos have been the best 2 this year. Even though they're midfielders, and I try not to have that bias, they just have been the best this year. In terms of Treloar, I think he's been outstanding this season. Super high up in the list. Where does he fit among these players? I think he doesn't have as much influence as people think with the ball. So I'm going to put him in the top of very scrumptious, but could easily break in there. And then Libba's been probably bottom of very scrumptious. Still had a really good season, but no, in fact, if Rosie's not in there, can Libba really be in there either? West Coast now, who have quite a plethora of players here. Well, geez, there are a lot of West Coast, an abundance of them. Elliot Yeo's had a breakout season compared to when he's been injured, if that makes sense. A comeback season, that's a much better term. Really quickly, first, Jay McGovern. I think McGovern and Andrews have been the best key defenders in the comp. In fact, why don't we talk about key defenders really quick? We're going to chuck those blokes in there. Okay, so we've got these three key defenders who have been the best this season. I think all three should have made All-Australian because you can't separate them. But I think McGovern's probably been the best. Between Wiedering and Andrew, I think Andrews is not as good as Wiedering, but I just think with the defense of Carlton, you can't put Wiedering quite that high. So we're going to stick with that. Going back to West Coast, Barras he's been good, but definitely overshadowed by Harris Andrews, so we'll put him there. Tim Kelly, I don't think he gets the recognition he deserves, but he definitely still doesn't strike me as someone who influences enough in that midfield. Elliot Yeo's been really good, but unfortunately not good enough. And Waterman, he's in the top category here. Someone who plays in a shocking West Coast side, he has done really well this season. Adelaide now, Rory Laird, we've got Crouch, and we have got Jordan Dawson. Crouch, it's not been a down season, but it's been one of his better seasons because of the injuries. But we'll put him at bottom of good, but is he actually good? Jordan Dawson, I think you've got to say, is a captain of a club who finished 4th last and someone who didn't quite get to the heights that he did last year. It's probably only been a very scrumptious season. And Rory Laird, I think, is probably good, but is he actually good in terms of the influence with the ball? Isaac Heaney, also in that top category. I think the midfielders are hard. Now, he's also a mid-forward, but I think if I had to choose 4 midfielders, it would be Bont, Cripps, Dacos, and Heaney as the 4 midfielders. And then we've got the 2 forwards here, so you can sort of separate them into categories. We've got the ruckman, and we've got the defenders, and the winger there. Arguably a small forward could go on that list, but not quite for now. Ollie Wines has had a very good season, but it's probably not as high as some people would have up there. Oh, I completely forgot, in terms of Adelaide, Ben Keys has had a really good season, but not as good as others. Kerno should be in the top, but just because the injury doesn't quite make him, we'll put him just above Waterman there. Schusteen has had a really good season, but I can't be having... Look, we'll put him in bordering on elite, but the reality is I've got to take some plays out there. The final players you can barely see here are Stengel, Taranto, and Bailey Dale. Taranto, injuries, it's been a down season. You can keep him there. Stengel has had a really good season, but I don't know. It's probably bordering on elite as well. And then Bailey Dale, he started the season rough, came back really good, probably in bordering in elite as well. Now for the fun part. I need to spread these categories out. There's way too many fuckers in this top category. First of all, actually, why don't we do that? And by the way, my shirt is absolutely ripped to shit. Why don't we separate this first? So I'm gonna look at the bottom here, people that could come out. Now, how many midfielders do we have in here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, kind of, 9, sort of, 10, 11, 12 midfielders is way too much. I've got to bring some down. I think if you had to bring down any midfielders, maybe it's Sheasel. Maybe it's a bit too early to go on Sheasel, maybe. But then if Sheasel's not there, does Matt Rowell... I'll tell you what, Newcomb deserves to be in there. The players that I'm thinking of putting down from this category are Matt Rowell. Bailey Dale's got to stay in there, doesn't he? I love Rankin, and I think when he's fit, he's arguably the best, but just the injury record, you've got to put him in there. Lachie Neale's got to go way higher, actually. I don't know why I have him that low. And then, geez, you know what? I'm going to be harsh and put Matt Rowell down there, and I'm just going to keep Rankin just. Actually, no, we need to get rid of one more. This just looks shit. Max Gawn. Max Gawn's obviously made All-Australian, but it hasn't been as good of a season as previous seasons of his. And you know what? There are some outrageous takes. To have Connor Rosie on the same level as Crouch is insane. But Crouch, you know what? Actually, we'll put Crouch in down season. Let's be honest with myself. Tim English, I think, has been better than Grundy. There's probably more changes to this. I'm happy if you can comment about the changes. What I will do is order the top 11 players in this list from best to worst. Best, I think, you know what? I'm going to be controversial and say Heaney's been the best. Purely because in those big moments, he stands up, and I think he offers... Actually, no, I'm fucking tripping. It's definitely Cripps than Dacos. Heaney in third. I think the Bont hasn't had as good of a season as people think. Out of the forwards, I think Hogan's been better. I think Goulding in his position's been amazing. You can come down, Jerry down there. You know what? I'm actually happy with this sort of list. That top 10, top 11, I'm happy with. Here, I'm not going to reorder too much, but yeah, that's my list. Thank you for watching. And it's a hard list to do. I'll tell you that much for free.